just welcome. And if you are new and unfamiliar with these network meetings, they're every half term. In the first year of running them, we tried to focus on the pillars from the government climate change and sustainability strategy, climate action plan. So we looked at biodiversity alongside decarbonisation, adaptation and resilience, and green skills and careers. This year we've unpicked some of those a little bit. So our last network meeting was on waste and consumption. Previous to that, we had one on food. This one's obviously on nature. All our network meetings are recorded. And if you've registered to attend but you're unable, they're emailed to you, but then they're also sent out in our half-termly newsletter. And the main aim of these network meetings primarily is to give you an opportunity to hear from experts in those fields. But also importantly, it's an opportunity for schools across the county to come together in a forum and share ideas, share inspiration, share success stories, lessons learnt. So I will try and make sure we have time at the end of this meeting to spend 15 minutes, if people are able to stay on the call, just to have a discussion about any ideas that have been raised from the talks, anything that you've tried. If you've got any links or references to sources that you found really helpful, then an opportunity to share those. But I'm in a really privileged position to be where I am and see what's happening across different schools in Suffolk, and there is some absolutely fantastic work going on. So I would really encourage you to share what's happening in your school.
So yeah, I'm Sophie Mays-Messam, and I am the World Schools lead at Suffolk Wildlife Trust. So one of the things that we'll be talking to you today about is our World Schools programme, and then I will hand over to Emma, who's a bit blurred at the minute, but we'll swap positions so she's a bit more focused, and then Emma will talk to you about our wilder training. I will also touch a little bit on our school visits and also some of the resources that we have available on the Trust itself. So hopefully, there we go. So what is Wild Schools? Wild Schools is a programme that helps Suffolk schools to understand the natural environment, discover local wildlife and build connections to nature. We actually began this back in 2022 now, and that was our first pilot. So Sussex Wildlife Trust had begun this first, and then we actually took this on in our own way. The programme is there to empower teachers to weave nature into everyday learning and creates the curriculum allowing pupils and staff to act for nature. So that's kind of where we're at. The map that's on there at the moment is actually all of the wild schools that have taken part in this pilot over the last 3 years. So yeah, it's about 30 wilder schools. Some of those pictures are just a few examples of various activities. So it's really simple, hands-on activities in school grounds where they learn to care for the natural world. We do a lot of habitat mapping, so we get to find out what's on the grounds first. Then we work with the pupils and with the teachers and decide what we're going to do. So every school is very unique. Most of these schools have now graduated the programme or are on their way to graduating, and we've actually learned quite a lot in the last 3 years. So we've actually now switched things up. As any pilot, you learn a lot from the people that have taken part, but also from doing it yourselves. And we've used that feedback now to create a new logic model, which I will show you a little bit of later. But it just means that we can now kind of do it to the best of its ability. So we're looking forward to kind of getting involved with the schools going forwards, as well as celebrating those schools that have still been with us in the past 3 years. And in particular, we're looking to explore the future green and blue pathways. That's kind of where we're really sort of hoping to kind of really start that, so that, you know, by the time they get into secondary and things like that, they're continuing. So there are 3 main areas of focus. So embedding outdoor learning within the curriculum, boosting wildlife on school grounds, obviously for us as the Wildlife Trust, that's what we really want to see. And as I said, inspired to explore future green and blue pathways. So the main kind of bit that the schools are really excited about with this is that we understand as a trust that talking with teachers and the climate advisors, that the new climate action plans that schools have been putting in place can sometimes seem a little bit overwhelming. But Wilder Schools is a really great way for the school community to actually take action for nature, as well as demonstrating this in their own climate action plans. And we can also then ensure that these are sustainable and maintained. So you can have a sort of look on here, but basically some of the things that we might actually do during kind of action days is things like water butts, conserve water, tree or hedge planting, composting, so reducing waste, improving soil health. It could be creating habitats, so we've got things again like hedgerows, wildflower areas, but it could be bug hotels, it could be swift boxes, stag beetle stacks we've done a lot of, especially because we've got a lot of schools near Ipswich. And then also embedding outdoor learning and sustainability across the curriculum. So a big way that we do this, and Emma again will touch on this, is the accredited training side of things, which we very proudly do in-house. And the main kind of programme and part of that to do with Wilder Schools is Leader in Outdoor Learning. And that's an accredited training programme that all the teachers get, and then we help them with that to embed it into their curriculum. So this here is actually just a little table. It's just a little part, but it's just an example of how this actually then fits into the climate action plan. And this is something that we do provide all of the schools that are taking part, so that basically they can then put this into their own climate action plans and all the relevant parts that they're doing, so that they can kind of demonstrate that that is, you know, hitting all the things that they need to hit. So I'm just going to share this one. So can everybody see now the sort of pretty picture? Yeah, wonderful. So this is our new resource pack. So this has been created quite recently. In fact, you're some of the first to see it, so that's quite exciting. This will be given to schools that are sort of looking at doing Wilder Schools with us. It talks a little bit about the actual programme. So what we now tend to do is year one is very much about embedding. So habitat mapping, leader in outdoor learning training, greening the curriculum is where we work alongside the teacher, and actually part of their leader in outdoor learning is to create lesson plans that involve outdoor learning, and we actually then, it's a bit of sort of a teach and see, and we actually support them with that because they have to do it for their coursework. And we also talk about community fundraising for any of the practical bits that they're going to need for year two. Year two is then very much action work days, so habitat creation, BioBlitz, and we have 4 of these. And then year 3 is all about community. So community action day, bringing everyone in to see what they've done. A Wilder School conference. So this is going to be a new thing that we're doing, but basically every Wilder School will be invited to come along, and it will be a yearly thing that we have. And then they also have their resource pack, which is given to them. And I'll show you a tiny bit of that in a second. And also they will have a Wilder School graduation. So just a very brief look, you're welcome to have a little look on there, but that kind of just breaks it down a little bit more. So talking about kind of how we're going to be going in during the different terms, but the main bit really is those action days. So we've sort of split it into homes, food and water and habitat, and the schools can really personalise, even though it's sort of standard for us and we know what we're doing for each of those, the schools can really choose their own programme, as it were, and it depends also on the school grounds and what actually would work for them. That's on there, and that's just some lovely photos of some of the schools that have taken part. You can see a real mixture, but lots of different things. Some schools have loads of lovely green ground, and you know, you can do lots of things. Others we're using planters, tyres, and you know, making little ponds. And other days we're actually doing lessons. There's like a maths lesson out there. We go in and sort of show them how they can incorporate basically it into any part of the curriculum that they want to. So I'm just going to go back to here. So at the end of the, so I just need to pull this over so I can see you guys again. So at the end of their 3 years, one of the things that we really kind of got fed back was that school teachers still felt the need to be supported just to know where to now take it. So we have been creating our Wilder Schools resource pack, a lot of this is there are parts of it that isn't on here that is sort of a bits that, you know, once you've done the Wilder Schools then you'd receive, but also all of these bits we include in a really nice easy way, but these are all available for free for any school to go and find online. So this is all created by RSWT and the Wildlife Watch. So I've put the link onto there, and I will send this presentation to Louisa so she can share it with you. But it's got really useful sort of sheets on there, so spring flower sheets, pond mini bee spotters, how to grow your own mini meadow, how to make a wildlife pond, and also just on the bottom left there are some lesson plans, and there are loads of different lesson plans already uploaded, literally broken down minute by minute on how you can incorporate outdoor learning into again your sort of everyday teachings. So that's on there as well. So that's a really sort of whistle-stop tour of Wilder Schools. Also, just to mention our school trips. So school trips are, you know, when basically you come and have a day with us. So it's normally a habitat day. These are now at Lackford Lakes, Carlton Marshes, Foxborough, which is here, Redgrave, Nettle Heath, Ipswich Parks and Bradfield Woods. They do get booked up very far in advance, but it is very much worthwhile taking advantage of those and going and visiting whatever site's closest to the schools. They're really lovely. They do all sorts of things: pond dipping, bird watching, habitat mapping, mini bees hunting. So it's a really nice way to kind of have a school trip but also get those parts. I think that's the end of my one. So I'm just going to hand you over to Emma, who is going to talk to you about Wilder training. Let me just... There's my mouse.
Cool. So, hello everyone. My name's Emma Keeble. So I'm the Wilder Training Manager for Suffolk Wildlife Trust. We're just doing a seamless chair slide. Hold on a sec. Otherwise, I'm very blurry. So basically, with our Wilder training provision, Sophie sort of touched on a few aspects of it, but we've got three main areas of focus. Can you all see that slide? Excellent. So our three focus areas are our accredited training courses, focusing on pathways into green and blue careers for 14 to 25-year-olds, and then applied environmental learning for key stages 3 to 5. So I'm just going to kind of touch on, as Sophie did, a whistle-stop tour of all of them for you. So our Wilder Training, Suffolk Wildlife Trust, is an accredited training centre with AIM, that's our awarding body, and we currently run this suite of courses that you can see at the moment. So Forest School Training, levels 2 and 3 of it, which I'm one of the tutors. Both myself and Joanne are endorsed by the Forest School Association. We are 2 of less than 20 nationally who are endorsed, which just shows that the level and the quality of our Forest School training is very high. We run the Leader in Outdoor Learning, as Sophie's mentioned. At the moment, that is very much a primary focused provision, but we are very much looking at creating something along those lines for secondary. So really looking at how we can work with secondary schools to help facilitate that provision of and delivery of the curriculum outdoors. We also run Wild Beach Leader training as well. At the moment, it is very much a watch this space. There will be more coming. I think we're probably preaching to the converted here already, but sometimes it's nice just to think about why it's important to do all those things and how it's so important to get people, adults and children outside in natural spaces. And these are just some really lovely comments that we have had from students, from trainees and practitioners about, most of that is collected from Forest School Training, but I think sometimes it can be so easy to think, oh, it's just easier to stay indoors, whereas actually the well-being benefits of that time outside are so vital. In addition to our accredited courses, we also run Wild Skills Days. So these are one-off days. There is no coursework for these. They are all about upskilling practitioners, teachers, individuals with different skills and tools that you might need in order to facilitate delivery outside. So you'll probably notice there's quite a forest school base on there because that's Joe and my passion. But there will be more things coming in to add to that suite of courses. And some of those are quality assured by AIM. So, for those of us that love having a certificate bank to build up, you will get a nice shiny certificate for some of those. In addition to those, and we will absolutely share these slides with you, so Louisa, hopefully you can share them with people so you're not all having to rapidly scribble down loads of notes. We also run some inset days, so these are days we've taken some of those courses basically and just thought, well, there are some settings who would really benefit from having a whole staff inset day to upskill in some of these. So rather than sending practitioners to us, we can come out to you and facilitate in your grounds, which can also mean we can give you some advice on your grounds at the same time. So at the moment we've got Forest School in the early years, some practical skills refreshers, again focusing on sort of those Forest School skills, so tools and fire, same with the play structures, and then our new course which is looking at well-being in nature, so well-being for staff and for students. I think well-being is such a huge area that people are more and more involved in, and how important it is to support our young people and ourselves in that. So giving some pointers there. And then also creating spaces for people and nature. So Sophie's run through our Wilder School project. And Wilder Schools is sort of like a 3-year programme. It's quite a big commitment for schools. But it might be that there are some schools who might not be able to commit to that programme at the moment, but still want some support and help in creating spaces for people and nature in their grounds. So we're offering like a 1-day inset where we can come in and give you advice on what things you might be able to do in your grounds. So that pretty much summarises our accredited training provision. We then are focusing, and this is a new one this year, on pathways into green and blue careers. So I'm looking at the moment at the offering of entry-level qualifications for 14 plus. I am currently running a course with some of my home educated individuals called Level 1 Forestry in the Community. So it's a bit of a random title, but it's very much getting them to focus on time outside and species and woodland management and tool use. But the plan is very much, we've just had some really interesting meetings with Inspire and WS Training, who facilitate young people in helping them to access the workplace. And so we've got a really exciting programme planned with them, looking at how we can support our young people to gain the skills and the qualifications that they might need to pursue a career in conservation or, either land or sea based. And those qualifications will be accredited by AIM again. So they are nationally recognised qualifications. And then the last string to our bow really is looking at applied environmental learning in secondary schools. So we are in the process at the moment of writing some programmes for Key Stages 3 to 5. So curriculum focused visits to our nature reserves, which will focus on various areas of the curriculum. So data collection and sampling, orienteering, geographical inquiry. So these will be sessions where secondary schools, colleges, FE can come out to us and we can help facilitate and assist with a lot of that curriculum focus. And that is the end of our whistle-stop summary. I don't know, Louisa, if you want to open, if anyone's got any questions, or obviously we're very happy to share not just the slides, but our email addresses in case anyone wants to speak to us, because I know you've obviously got a packed programme.
Well, without further ado, because it is a packed schedule, I'm going to hand over to Jenna Gilmore of National Education Nature Park. We've actually featured the National Education Nature Park in one of our network meetings previously. This nature webinar follows one on biodiversity last year. And if you weren't able to attend last year's, I'll pop it in the chat. But Jenna will expand on the introduction to the nature park that was given in that webinar. Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you so much for having me, Louisa. It's great to kind of be back and introduce stuff. I'm just going to test out sharing.
All looks good here. Fantastic.
Okay, perfect. I do have two screens, so if hands come up while I'm going through everything, I'll be able to kind of monitor what's going on. But yes, thank you so much for having me. And like you've said, I'm just going to expand on kind of how the nature park process works beyond just what is the nature park. But just really quickly, for anyone who wasn't able to make it at our previous one, I'll just go over some highlighted points about the program, if it'll let me. There we go. So just one key thing is to say that we're fully funded by the Department of Education, and we were kind of born out of their sustainability strategy, alongside these other programs here, so Climate Ambassadors, Let's Go Zero, and Sustainability for Support in Education. So if you haven't heard about those programs, just get in contact with either myself, or I'm sure Louisa's got their information as well. But we kind of work in tandem to help schools become more sustainable and to kind of incorporate sustainability into their climate action plans, and in particular, which is, you know, my passion and my focus, how this can feed into the curriculum. So quickly for the nature park, like I said, we're fully funded. So that means for schools, we are completely free. So all of our resources online are free to access. Once you register, it'll kind of go through the different processes with you and guide you through it with the dashboard. But if you're wanting to get in contact with myself or Lewis, who is my counterpart within the East of England, we are available, and our support for schools is free as well. The main aims of the program is really to look at biodiversity gain from a community science aspect in particular. So we're led by the Natural History Museum, and they take all this research, all this data that schools are helping us collect. And this year, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be publishing our first research paper about what schools are having an impact on, and kind of what we're doing, and how we're promoting and improving biodiversity. We have lots and lots of curriculum linked resources, which I will have a chance to go over in a bit. But just to say that we have quite a rigorous quality control. So it goes through almost too rigorous a process, just to make sure that all of our resources are fully curriculum aligned, and, you know, have the vocabulary, have all those elements that mean you can pick up and go with those resources. A key part of the program is this incorporation of digital skills. So looking at how you can use certain, you know, industry standard devices or programs such as GIS, if anyone's heard of that, through Esri, and getting students to kind of get taster versions and build their skills slowly in those products, so that when they go out into the industry, for example, they're fully aware of what people are using in real life, and building on those skills. And, you know, I can attain that when I went to university, we were definitely using these digital skills and tools already. So and then, of course, we've already touched on this, so I won't go too much in detail, but the improved well-being of young people, being outside and kind of learning by doing, learning by interacting and caring for your environment, has these really great co-benefits in terms of nature connection and well-being for our young people, and for staff. Let's not forget the staff as well. So what is Nature Park? It is schools themselves creating almost like a wildlife corridor, essentially. It's these pockets of sanctuaries that wildlife can use on your site to create what is the Education Nature Park. So schools kind of connecting, creating this network, creating these places that wildlife can now prosper, essentially. And of course, seeing what schools are doing, because we don't know a lot about what is on school sites. So it's great to kind of find out where we're starting from as well. So we use this 5-step process. This is what it looks like, and it is cyclical. So when I go over everything, we're going to kind of start at the kind of step 2, because when we get to step 1 or 5, they are very similar, because you're kind of weaving back into the cycle and redoing the process so that you can actually see and collect data about the impact, and you can evidence in particular what your schools and your young people are doing. So this is kind of what I would say my recommended like route through the program would be. I'm going to talk about my 2 favorite resources that I believe any school can kind of pick up and use and adapt for any setting. So kind of I've done it across key stages. And I just think, yeah, my kind of cherry-picked resources. And then when we get to this like making change happen element, I'll suggest some improvements that schools can kind of do to get high impact as well. So we're going to start by looking at our planner. So we're currently obviously in the summer term. Sorry, it's a little bit blurry. It's blurry on my screen. I don't know if it is for you, but we have a termly planner. When we send this out, everything I talk about today is hyperlinked. So when Louisa sends out the PDF of this, you'll be able to click on the resources and have a look at them. But we do have a couple suggestions of what you could get on with in this term. But in particular, I think for anyone joining today, that summer term is a really great starting point to kind of think of what can you achieve next year and kind of building yourself up to that. So a great option this term is maybe to look at writing a vision statement. And this is a way to get your young people involved in kind of thinking about what do they want their school to become? What do they want to see more of? What would they like to do and use and hear and all those different things, and getting their kind of that pupil voice into it. Once you've created your vision statement and these questions, and there's different like PowerPoint links and stuff for doing this activity, so I won't go into too much detail. But once you've kind of gone through this process with your young people and they've created that vision statement, that can then go through into next year. And that can be like where you kind of target your energy potentially for the next year. So on the website, we have kind of like some sentence starters if you're curious. But I also just wanted to highlight a local school in Felixstowe and their vision statements and what they created using this resource. And it's really, really guided their outdoor learning quite a lot. I'm actually going to go see them next week, which will be great to kind of see where they are with their vision statement. But I just wanted to kind of pick up on what you could do after this as well. So ideas for improvement, I'm very biased towards this. This is probably my favorite resource out of everything on our website that I've used. But it kind of goes through what problems you might have on your site and what nature-based solutions you can then use to mitigate those. So this is just a snippet from the PowerPoint that is already on the website, but it kind of addresses things like this. So for example, noise and air pollution, and they've got a really busy main road along your school. So this is kind of something that Cornelius looked at when they were creating their what they wanted to change on their site through their vision statement. And they wanted these spaces where students kind of felt that they could relax and play within nature and not feeling like essentially they had a busy road next to them. And so they looked at these ideas for improvements cards. So these are a top Trump style card, which is perfect because I don't think I've met a young person that doesn't know how to play this game. and they can kind of pick up these cards and run with the session. So once you've created your vision statement, you kind of have an aim of what you're wanting to do. You can then pose the issue of, we want to cancel out noise pollution. What could we do to do that? So they have these different examples. They've obviously got the classic top trumps rating system, but most importantly, I think, is that they've got this ranking system here that talks about impact, whether it's instant within 1 year or even more long term, and kind of what would the cost be of doing that. So students can start thinking about like the feasibility of their ideas and not just this blue sky thinking. These are downloadable, and you can print them off yourself and kind of create your own deck of ideas for improvements cards. And then if for any younger years, there is a Planning Our Green Future version, which is kind of just the images that they can start using to get ideas for. So those two kind of go hand in hand as kind of your starting point. That's something you can do this term. But if you're wanting to get out and really find out what your school has and is doing, I call this creating your baseline. Okay, so there's two types of baseline that your school can find out through our program. And that is doing the classic habitat mapping, which was brought up on, my route picture. And that is looking at what habitats you have. And then once you've kind of done that with your young people, you can see that they're doing this in that photo there. You can then look at the suite of nature surveys that we have. So if your school's thinking of possibly doing like a BioBlitz, for example, we have a pollinator count, a grassland survey, and a project on iNaturalist, and guides on how to use these different resources on our website. And that kind of says, what habitats do we have? What wildlife is it supporting? Then you can go ahead and make the change and come back to this step. Okay, we've now got this habitat. What wildlife is it supporting? And you can kind of see the transition of your change, such as in this result over here. So obviously a very drastic change. They're not always this big. But we call this kind of a grey to green, so space that has no nature, and then of course putting the nature there and finding out what changes has that created, what impact does it have. I've just dropped down in the bottom here a couple of the curriculum links. One that I think is quite important is this working scientifically. So if we've got any geography teachers or biology science teachers that are trying to think of a way to do that fieldwork element of their curriculum, the nature surveys are a really great way to do that. The pollinator count in particular goes through quite a good scientific kind of way, like I would have done this at university, is doing a habitat survey exactly the same way. So it lays it out quite well. Sorry, I am going really quickly, just trying to fit everything in. So I'll take in any questions at the end. I just wanted to get to what my suggestions for your school might be. I think my top one is probably, maybe this isn't my top one, but maybe the most accessible one for school is creating a wildflower patch. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to section off a space of your school to create this. I've seen really successful wildflower areas that are borders of a school. One that I love in particular is having it around like a football pitch or, the playing field, because you obviously need a very specific space to play football, for example, but all the outer edges aren't necessarily used. So it kind of becomes dead space, and you can use that dead space for that. Making a log pile, if you've got any sticks, doesn't have to be you cut down a tree and you create logs. If you've got anything there that you can pile into a corner and shove leaves and everything around, then that's a really great affordable option. But equally, if you're wanting kind of something that is a bit more engaging for the young people to have a look at, putting down like a piece of corrugated metal or plastic is a great way, because they can kind of easily lift that up to see what is accumulating underneath that, and they can kind of engage with the mini beasts that come to their site. My favourite is a container pond. I think this probably has the highest impact in terms of biodiversity and putting it onto your, especially if you don't have a pond or any sort of water feature on your site. This really boosts your biodiversity almost instantly in the sense of you didn't have that habitat and now you do. But container ponds in particular, I get a lot of schools that say we can't have a pond for safety reasons. So having kind of a smaller feature that still attracts different wildlife. And it might not attract frogs and newts and those really amphibians, like those larger species, but it will definitely do things like hoverflies and different insects that kind of need that space and are in decline and are really great for pond dipping as well. So that's kind of my favorite choice there. And I just wanted to signpost to the Wild About Gardens document. So these are booklets. Currently this year, it is the Year of the Moth. And in the booklets, it has ways to create habitat for those species. And it will have an activity at the end that you can do with your young people to kind of engage them with that wildlife. But they also store previous year's booklets at the bottom of the page. So if there's a particular species that you're wanting to encourage and you want some guidance on how to do that, you can access that through the Wild About Gardens. I'm going to finish there because I'm conscious of time. And I'll leave this on the screen. These are just some kind of different curriculum. I was going to go over the website and show you these, but just for time's sake, I'm going to leave it. If you have any questions about curriculum linked resources, please let me know in the chat and I can drop some links. And if you want to get in touch with me, this is our email. Again, I'll put it in the chat. And you can contact me if you'd like any visits or any support through the Nature Park programme. Thank you.
Now I will hand over to Andrew, a senior ecologist at Suffolk County Council, who's able to share some of his expertise with you. Thanks,
You're
Andrew.
very kind. Thanks, Louisa. Unlike those who made a presentation beforehand, I haven't brought anything zippy and whizzy along. But I picked up so much from what you said, and when you were talking about GIS training for that sort of thing. When I'm looking at hiring people and that sort of thing, those that have actually got experience of using GIS and have some examples of doing that, their CV will go up the pile. And when we get dozens and dozens of applications for a single job, it's things like that that really do count when we're trying to make shortlists and so on. Anyway, I'm an ecologist at Suffolk County Council, and I have been for years. And during that time, myself and my team have probably been to every single school in Suffolk for one reason or another. What we do when we go out to these sites, if we're working for Concertus, is provide, amongst other things, preliminary ecological appraisal, which is a kind of a baseline of the school site and habitat. That's become more complex with the introduction of the Environment Act of 2021, that's introduced the concept of biodiversity net gain. So we have to have a baseline in order to be able to see what's going to be lost, what's going to be gained, and how that's going to be gained. And we now do biodiversity net gain calculations. We draw up habitat monitoring, mitigation and management plans for school sites and so on. And one of the things that we have done for many, many years is for each particular job that's been delivered by Concertus or Veritas or whatever, is we provide a precautionary method statement. And one of the things that, this is my first time in this forum, I'm very anxious to do is to do some school-specific stuff and bring in the Wildlife Trust and the National Education Nature Park and that sort of thing into that. But the question is, and this is for schools here, how many of you have actually seen one of my precautionary method statements? Right. Okay. You should see them. They are meant for the gangs that are working on the ground, whether that's construction or renovation or whatever. But at the same time, the school must have an indication of the sorts of opportunities available to them as a result of what we've seen when we go out on site. Because we do this work for Concertas, it may be seen, the perception might be that there is somehow or other a division between schools and us as ecologists. We're Suffolk County Council's ecologists, and all the while Suffolk County Council owns those school sites, whether you're an academy or not, we are still available to give ecological advice on these things. So we are available to you. If we're doing something substantial, then if that's through Concertas or Veritas or whatever, then we're obliged to charge for that. If it's simply talking about something that you might want to do on site, then we're just a phone call away. And we do have our team. I was trying to work it out. We've got something like 120 years of experience in working in the nature conservation sector. So we've got a pretty good idea about how things might work and what things can be delivered and so on. So really, it's the point of me being here is to let you know that you do have access to an ecologist should you require it. And the other thing is that to ensure that you actually get to see all of the stuff that's being planned around you if you're undergoing refurbishments or rebuildings or whatever. So having said that, what I would touch on, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to talk about, but I have to say Jenna's presentation on the National Education Nature Park and the stuff from the Wildlife Trust as well. I'm going to expand a little bit on the nature at work. You may be familiar if you live in the east of the county that a few years ago, East Suffolk Council put up a number of signs saying, "Pardon the weeds, we're feeding the bees." Yeah, you've seen those, where areas of on the whole grassland on roadside verges were left unmown for no mow May and beyond, to enable early pollinators and so on either to find shelter, but certainly to find food and protection from predators and so on and so forth. That project has been within East Suffolk Council has been renamed Nature at Work. But through the contacts that we've made at a campaign caused quite a buzz. Yeah, I just saw that. Thanks, Louisa. Through contacts that we have right the way across Suffolk, we are building up through the Suffolk Verges project, a county-wide nature at work approach. Suffolk, our responsibilities are highways, schools, minerals and waste and that sort of thing. So we have a limited amount of responsibility in the wider habitat. Districts and boroughs will have responsibilities, for example, with churchyards, which are being sympathetically managed. There are many other projects that are going on, the sorts of things that Sophie and Emma were talking about, the sort of things that Jenna were talking about. These are all part of nature at work in Suffolk. We're adding to the scheme bee cafes, which will be planters that will form bridges where there's hard surfaces, hard standing, nothing but tarmac and brick, between one area of reasonable habitat and another area of reasonable habitat. So we're looking at sort of bridging these things. What we want to achieve through cooperation with and coordination with all of our colleagues is a county-wide network of linked habitats, whether that's churchyards, whether it's school grounds that are being managed sympathetically, either through the initiatives of the Wildlife Trust or through your initiatives, Jenna. And indeed in the East, whether it's initiatives that National Landscapes are doing. We want to bring those together so that people can look at what county and the districts and what in the not too distant future will become 3 separate authorities. What are we doing for nature and for people? People and nature are indivisible, and good nature is better for Homo sapiens, and Homo sapiens having a good understanding of how nature works and what we can do to support that is absolutely incredibly important for nature as well as for ourselves. So
Just a thought there. Sorry to jump in,
yeah, no,
Andrew.
not at all.
I feel a competition coming on, but wouldn't it be a great opportunity if we could come up with a collaborative project where students across Suffolk are involved in promoting that campaign for
Yeah.
nature at work?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if they could know where they sit, if they're a stepping stone for a pathway for a certain type of migratory bird, or if they're bee cafe services, bees that travel along a certain pathway. So they get a sense, because one of the things that we talk about quite a lot is that sense of empowerment when you realise that you're taking action, but it's the collective action as well. So if we could tie, and we'll have to meet and see how we could make this work, but feel another collaboration coming on where we tie people into this.
Absolutely. I mean, the plan is that in the not too distant future, we will have a baseline map of the things that we've got going already, and that's when we want to invite collaboration. And with things like the bee cafes, if one of those is established, say for example in a school in a town centre where access to grass may be limited, we've got a bee cafe, whether that's in window boxes or in a planter or whatever, and those that are keen can go out and see if they can see the first red-tailed bumblebee or first white-tailed bumblebee or whatever, and report those directly to Suffolk Biodiversity Information Service. And this is proper real-world science. There's building on the things that the previous speakers have been talking about. So I see it as an opportunity for collaboration, coordination, and so on. And the more that are interested in it, and the more support we get, the better it is for Suffolk, the better it is for Suffolk's biodiversity, and the better it is for us as people. So I am working as hard as I can to get something deliverable. Our first main presentation was going to be to SALC, the Suffolk Association of Local Councils, that's parish councils and town councils and that sort of thing. But it seems to me that our very next port of call ought to be a venue with the sort of people that we have around the table today, to do that, to see where we can find those points of coordination, where we can find projects that are working really successfully in one school. Perhaps that's in the east of the county, but we might be able to talk to somebody in the west of the county that's got a similar setup, might be able to deliver something there as well. So a point where information can come in and be shared freely and widely, across our county. So that's sorry, I have actually used up my 15 minutes as well, so I'll stop there. My details should be in the chat. If they're not, I'll endeavour to do that, but certainly I want to catch up with Sophie and Emma and Jenna. If anyone else is interested in finding out more about what we do as County Council ecologists and how we can support what you are doing and what you're trying to deliver, just please get in touch.
Right, so our final guest speaker of today is Emma Black from National Landscapes, previously known as Areas of Outstanding Beauty. Emma, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Right. Can you see the slides? Can everyone see the slides okay?
Yes, that's great. Thanks, Emma.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my name's Emma Black and I'm a Countryside Projects Officer for the Denham Vale National Landscape and Store Valley. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about what we can do for schools within the national landscapes. And we're really strong on working together for wildlife. and it's really, really important to what we do and for the communities that are in the national landscapes. So I'm just going to quickly go through what is a national landscape. So as some of you may well not know, so they are designated areas of outstanding natural beauty. They're protected under the 1949 National Parks and Access to the Countryside Act. And in this map on the left, you can see there are 46 in the UK. So they're big geographical size landscape scale protections for the nation's finest countryside. And they're places that are so special that they have been designated in the national interest and protected by law. So they're similar to national parks, but we don't have so much the recreational side of what a national park does. We're very much looking to conserve and enhance the natural beauty of the area. So in East Anglia, in Suffolk, we have two national landscapes. We have the Suffolk and Essex national landscape that goes from Lowestoft all the way up here in the north, all the way down here to just the north of Essex here on the River Stour. So it's called Coast and Heath because it's along the coast and it's in very much the heathy areas on the Sandlings. The other national landscape is the Dedham Vale National Landscape. So this is the darker green area in the picture, and that's east of Bures going to Catterwade in Essex here near Brantham. And we also have a project area which starts up here near Cambridgeshire borders, near Haverhill and beyond, and it follows all the way down to Bures here. So both national landscapes have some of Essex in it as well. So we're funded by DEFRA, local authorities, and we get quite a lot of external grants as well. So what is our main purpose? So our main purpose is to conserve and enhance the natural beauty and special qualities of the landscape. And to do that, we have to work in partnership, particularly with parish councils, community groups, schools, farmers, businesses, residents. We don't own any land, so in order to conserve and enhance the natural beauty and special qualities of these national landscapes in Suffolk, we have to work with everybody. We also do quite a lot of promoting what we do through different things like communications, leaflets, newspapers and events. We do a lot of access to nature work, working with underrepresented communities. So it's really important that we also have better working relationships with all these different stakeholders within the community so we can conserve and enhance that landscape for people and for nature. So I'm whizzing through these slides because I'm sure we're all quite tired. So how can we help schools? So one of the biggest things that we can do is help with school grounds improvements for nature. So I know a lot of you have already talked about that already. And so we've got groups of volunteers and things that come and help do some work in school grounds. We also can help with funding. We have some grants that schools can access. We have some fact sheets and event kits that schools can borrow. We have discovery fact sheets that tell you more about the national landscapes. You can sometimes give talks to assemblies. We also have a young people's group, and we also do quite a lot of work experience. So this, obviously, we're very much a geographical designation, so we can only really work with those schools that are within or on the edges of the national landscapes. So in terms of improving school grounds for nature and children, you know, we're really passionate about this. You know, young children are the future and they need to have better access to nature. So if we can help by developing school grounds for nature, wildlife, you know, and well-being, then that's really, really good for everyone. So what happens, it tends to be a school might get in touch with us. We'll then go and do a little site visit and talk to them. It might be that there might be somebody from the eco group there. It might be the head teacher. It might be a teacher leading on it. We sort of have a general chit-chat conversation about what it is that they're wanting to do. And then we would then think about how we can support and help them, giving them some advice and some management recommendations. So this could be on, say, a pond, how a lot of schools have got ponds, a lot of schools have got a lot of stuff in the school grounds that just aren't looked after. So we would try and help them with some management recommendations of what to do there. We give advice on how to increase the wildlife in the school grounds and the management around that. We've got a group of volunteers in both national landscapes who go in and do various practical works in school grounds. And we also have some tools that we can loan out to schools as well if they're doing a particular project in their school grounds. And again, funding, which I'll talk about in a minute. So a lot of schools, we have within the national landscapes, obviously we've got priority habitats. So in the Dedham Vale, that's very much hedgerows and woodlands, and in the coast and heaths, it's very much heathland and the coast, as you can expect. But we also have priority species, and some of those are really, really endangered, and so there's lots of things that schools can do to help support those priority species. So in this slide here on the right, you've got some of our volunteers who have created a stag beetle pyramid. Stag beetles are, you know, the UK's largest beetle. They're endangered on the Suffolk and Essex borders, you know, going up a bit into the Suffolk coast, you know, there are a stronghold. So they need stepping stones. So burying some logs in the ground, putting in this sort of habitat creates stepping stones for these large beetles. We do lots of tree planting, hedge planting with the children, and also a lot of schools are now putting up swift boxes and house martin boxes and various other sort of habitats that help support wildlife, which are quite easy wins to do. And, you know, we can come in and support schools in doing this. Many schools access our funding. So this is obviously for those schools within the national landscapes and on the edge. And it's a community grant. I don't suppose you can really see that very clearly, but schools can access this funding. And I spoke to our funding officer, and she has given me a whole list of things that schools have accessed the funding for. So things like outdoor education infrastructure, so pond dipping platforms, outdoor learning shelters, tables and chairs for outdoor learning. Lots of water saving and carbon reduction measures are a really big important thing for schools to be a bit more sustainable. So things like water collection systems, guttering, water butts, solar powered weather stations, compost bins. Outdoor education resources. So this is really important. You're bringing the wildlife in, but you want to see it, and it all costs money. So you can get grants for this. So things like field guides, the Field Studies Council do amazing identification guides, the binoculars, minibus hunting kits, pond dipping kits, you know, having a nature library with all these books and, you know, bug boxes and things in. So these are all sorts of things that you can put down in your application and get funding for. A lot of schools would love to go and visit places, but they can't afford it. Transport is so expensive. So you can apply to our fund to have some transport costs for environmental education visits to sites. For example, a lot of schools on the coast do beach schools as well as forest schools. And so together with the transport, you can also get the relevant education sessions being delivered. So often we work with Suffolk Wildlife Trust to do that. Staff training costs, you know, not everybody knows about wildlife, not everybody knows how to, you know, teach it or what to put in the school grounds about nature. So again, if you put a application in, you can put in for some staff training costs. There's lots of people out there who can do this. Yeah, always worth putting that in to have a bit of staff, you know, teacher training on various things. And also external delivery of learning sessions. So things like school nature photography walks. If you look at the picture here, so this was done with an external delivery partner who worked with the school and went off and did some photography. This one here is All Valley Academy. They're enhancing their school grounds here, and the top one is Hoseley Primary School, who have done some pond creation. So all of these sort of things can be accessed through the pots of money that we have in both of the national landscapes. Right, hang on a minute, let's just move on. So yeah, as I said before, working together so that we all become a lot wilder is really, really important. And that wildlife on the doorstep is so important, so that we access the nature on our doorstep. We don't have to go miles to see it. So we're working together with partners, the RSPB, the Wildlife Trust in Essex and Suffolk, and ourselves to work together to help local communities get wildlife on the doorsteps. And there's so many people that want to do this now, and they're all setting up their own little village, community wildlife group. And what we've done is we've created some wildlife kits, and these kits can be used by community groups at events. They can be used by schools, and they're basically a selection of wildlife homes. So there's a swift box, there's a house martin box, there's a hedgehog box, there's loads of different homes. They're really easy wins that people can do either in their school grounds or in their community, and it's just enhancing that habitat for wildlife. We've also got examples of mini wildlife habitats. So the mini pond, there's a mini lawn, there's a mini stag beetle pyramid, there's a mini dead hedge, all these things that are really easy to do, that don't cost a lot of money, and will bring wildlife into the home and into the school, and obviously providing that habitat. And we also have some how to create information sheets. Our funding officer, Oka, who is dealing with a lot of schools and a lot of the funding applications, was just finding that the people who are putting the applications together really didn't know much about wildlife. There's a lot of training that's needed. And so we decided we put together some fact sheets to help schools and community groups, do better applications, and also just have better knowledge of how they can, create more space for nature. So here's an example of some of our Wilder Together fact sheets. So this one is on a stag beetle. So really simple information, and giving pictures of the life cycle of the stag beetle, and then also there's another page which is all about how to create a stag beetle pyramid. And on each of these fact sheets, there's also a QR code that takes you to more information. So we've got laminated sets of these that if you hire out the Wilder Together event kits, you can get these, and these are really good educational resources for schools to use to find out more information about what they can do to bring wildlife into their school grounds, and also habitats as well. So not just specific wildlife species, but also habitats, and this one's on garden ponds and how you can get more wildlife. I mean, the number one habitat that brings in wildlife is ponds, and I recognise a lot of schools don't necessarily want ponds. They do take a lot of work. They do, become marshes very quickly, but they do bring in a lot of wildlife. And even if you can just have a few little bits of water around the school, you'll get some wildlife using that water. So these are all on our website. So they're on this PowerPoint presentation, which I'm assuming Louisa will probably share. But yeah, just head to our websites and you'll get the fact sheets there, which you can just download. So in the Dedham Vale, we have a Store Valley Education Network, and this is a group of outdoor learning providers. So these are education providers. So that could be the Suffolk Wildlife Trust, it could be smaller nature reserves that do nature education, it could be Sudbury Common Lands. So there's lots and lots of different outdoor providers that offer educational activities to schools. Gainsborough House, RSPB down at Flatford, Field Study Centre down at Flatford, and we all got together and produced some discovery fact sheets. Again, these are on our website. You can download these. They're aimed at 7 to 11-year-olds, but also I would say probably lower secondary as well. They're really, really informative. There's 5 fact sheets, so one on wildlife, one on culture, one on heritage, one on the river, what's the other one? One on landscape. And so yeah, really, and they've got loads of links and loads of different activities that children can do, but obviously they're very much site specific. They're all in the Dedham Vale and Store Valley, and there are some on the in the Coast and Heaths as well, which again talks about the relevant habitats and the relevant sort of things in the Coast and Heaths. And every year, though we're not doing it this year, we have something called the Wild in the Store Valley, which is a massive free educational day in Sudbury, and there's all of the partners in the Store Valley Education Network turn up, and there's pond dipping, there's bug hunting, there's lots of arts and crafts. So this we send out to schools, a flyer, and we get lots and lots of families coming along to that. So that's a really, really good community family nature education day. So often we work with community groups on specific species, so whether that's swifts, whether that's hedgehogs, stag beetles, and we work with them on hedgehog-friendly village projects, for example. And with that, we'll work with the school, we'll come in and give an assembly, we'll try to see what sort of connectivity there is in terms of making sure that hedgehogs can get through from the school grounds to the neighbouring gardens, and we build hedgehog boxes and things like that. So we do work on specific projects with communities, and that will involve some school youth involvement as well. And as I say, we've got lots and lots of resources that we can share on the hedgehog friendly projects within schools as well. And finally, working with young people is really, really important to us. So, you know, from 13 to 18-year-olds, there's a lot of young people out there who are passionate about nature and climate, but really haven't really found a group that they really want to belong to. They're not footballers, they're not, you know, into netball or sport, but they like being outdoors and they like being in nature. And so this is a wonderful group. It's the Coast and Vale Youth Rangers. They go out once a month. It's on Sunday morning for 3 hours. And they go out and they learn about nature. They either do practical conservation work, or they use apps like I think Nature Park were talking about. Here they are looking at listening to an app called Merlin, which tells you what birds are around. This Sunday they're going off to the National Trust. They're going to do some little bit of practical work, and then we're going to do some butterfly surveys and grass and wildflower surveys with them. Many people do their Duke of Edinburgh with us. I'm a Duke of Edinburgh assessor, so I can assess their time. And yeah, a lot of young people from this group have now gone on to do conservation courses and doing environmental jobs. So it's a really, really lovely, positive group who go out and enjoy being outdoors doing practical conservation work. And I think, you know, the biggest thing is that they've found like-minded people who also like to do this sort of thing as well. We also offer work experience as well to young people, and it's depending on where they are and what schools as well. Obviously, we're very much geographically based, so we obviously can't offer it to everybody, and obviously they need to get to our office to come out with us to do work experience, but we do that as well. And finally, just our contact details. So there's Suffolk and Essex National Landscape and the Denan Vale National Landscape and Store Valley. And yeah, that's who we are. And we're keen to work with schools where we can, obviously geographically in those areas. But yeah, happy to answer any questions, or if anyone wants any more information, happy to provide that.
Thank you so much, Emma, especially because I know you raced to us from working on site, I think, didn't you? So we really, really appreciate that.
That's okay.
And another huge offering with such a range of things. I mean, I think your grant offering, I understand that is localised to the geographic areas, but that it's considered things like travel costs for off-site visits and staff training. That's brilliant. Loaning tools, and the list of kind of, I love the kit that you mentioned with those easy wins that tick boxes in that they are doable, low maintenance, but high impact for nature as well. You know, those are the kind of things that we really love to see. And also all the hands-on elements. You know, it's not all academic learning about nature, it's learning about nature through nature with nature, which is really what we want to foster that sense of connection, which then brings about all those well-being elements as well for children and teachers as well as supporting our natural world. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for going through all that information.